Ron Turk is part owner of a Foxton-based business that produces 125,000 chickens a week for domestic and export markets. Turks Poultry supplies around 8% of the chicken meat consumed by New Zealanders each year.
It's a family business, and it started off with egg production, but now we're mainly meat production. We're slowly going out of eggs, mainly free range. We're processing about 25,000 chickens a day. We have a staff of roughly 230. Very family orientated, the way we try and do business. The ownership is my father and myself. We have a number of family people involved in the business, as well as some in farm ownership. We have 6 contractors supplying chickens to the main company. The chickens belong to the company, not to the farmer. The farmer's looking after them. We started 50 years ago with 2,000 chickens laying eggs, and at the moment we've got about 94,000 laying eggs and roughly 6.5 million chickens growing in a year. It's growing just out of, I don't know, desire to get bigger, I suppose, or the need to get bigger. But it's a really interesting business to be in, as well as just producing food. We really enjoy what we do. We enjoy meeting the customers. We've got customers that have been buying our chicken forever. I've got customers for 40 years, and the same as suppliers. We've got suppliers that we've been buying things like cardboard boxes off and other things and chickens for all that 50 years. So it's a neat business. There's really nice people in it, really good, positive people. If we stayed what we were, say, even 10 years ago, we'd definitely be out of business now. So you need to get bigger. You need to be able to afford the right equipment to be able to do the job correctly. For that, you need money, you need profit, and if you don't grow, you'll just go backwards really fast. The consumer is definitely getting more interested in how we do things and why we do them, not just the taste, even though we get a lot of compliments about our corn-fed free-range chicken, tasting quite different to the opposition's chicken. But they want to know how the company gets involved with the community, its environmental effects, a lot more than you would think, say, 10 years ago. So we need to get those messages across. And like this farm, we have cameras on the farm, so we can put it on our website. You'll be able to watch the chickens outside, inside, growing. You can watch the daily activities on the farms. We do get audited by Assure Quality to make sure we've got everything correct. We like to be audited independently, so we know when we get a report, we can honestly say that's truly what's happening. We get audited in the plant every 3 months by MPI to make sure we stay on our export standard. And we consider an audit day to be just an ordinary day, so nothing else changes. This shed is a naturally ventilated shed. As you can see, we've got these big wings have opened up as the days got a little warmer. Chickens, as they get older, generate a lot of heat, so we actually need to cool them down. So we start heating them at day 1 at 32 degrees, and by the time they're 2 weeks old, we're cooling them down. About day 35, day 36, we'll take a percentage out for processing, and by day 42, the shed will be empty. And then we get 7 days to clean the manure out, wash it down, sanitise it, and set it back up for day-old chickens to come back in exactly a week later. We first put a machine in to physically take out the manure, and that goes on to a farmer not far from here and spread onto land. We'll then sweep the shed down and blow it down. Then we'll water blast it from top to bottom, and then finally sanitise it. Then leave it to dry for a few days, normally over the weekend. On a Monday, we'll put new shavings in, sanitise it one more time, and Thursday we put the day-old chickens back in the shed. This breed is called Cobb, which is one of the 2 breeds around the world. Probably the top 2 is Cobb and Ross, and their genetics just keep getting better and better. So we're growing a bird close up to 3 kilos at day 42. There's no hormones in our feed, even though people think there is. We're in the process of trying to go totally antibiotic free. It's a little bit more involved than it sounds, but we're working towards that. The food is all very natural. The majority of it's grown within an hour drive from here. We make the feed ourselves, so we have a lot of control on nearly everything. The only thing we really don't control is the day-old chicken. We buy that in. For the rest, it's controlled within the company. There's 32,500 put in the shed at day-old. Day 36 will take 7,000 or 8,000 out just to keep the density down. The shed's 140 metres long and 16 metres wide. We don't want to go any wider because it becomes not able to naturally ventilate. We call it free to range. We don't constrict them from what they want to do. We keep them in the shed for the first 19, 20 days until they're well feathered, otherwise they wouldn't survive outside. After that, we open up the pop holes and they stay open for the rest of their time. So they can wander in and out day and night. And they're quite fussy. They like to have a good climate. So if it's too wet or too cold, you will see very few out. On a nice morning, you could see thousands and thousands out. And then the sun comes up and a lot of them decide it's just too hot and they go back in again. But we don't restrict them at all. One of the challenges, things like Campylobacter, and like we can see here, we've actually netted the area that they can go out totally, so sparrows can't fly in, hopefully. Every now and again, one or two get in, but we try and restrict it. We try and keep any predators out. We have a lot of bait stations, just in case rats get on the site. Other challenges, biosecurity is very tight on the farm, so we make sure people are coming on the farm haven't been on other farms, and we'll have a foot bath. There's some quite strict restrictions of who is allowed in. If anyone like myself goes overseas, we'll have a stand down period of 5 days before we're allowed back on our own farm. This is definitely the way we want to go. Free range is what we see as a better option. It's less density in the shed than traditional meat chickens. And it's, I think, a little safer. We're not so reliant on power. If the power goes out in these sheds, things just stay as they are, so it's not such a rush. The barn ones relying on a lot more fans, so the generator has to go. You've got to be right on it, make sure everything works.
Turks Poultry process around 125,000 chickens each week at their Foxton plant. Around 90% of the chickens processed are sold fresh, the remainder frozen.
We're in the main working area after the chicken's been processed. So in here, once the heat's been taken out of the chicken gets hung up so we can drip dry and weigh it. And then we decide we want to sell it as a whole bird or do we want to cut it up into portions. So this machine right beside us will actually cut a whole bird into pieces and it'll do about 6,000 an hour. So it's quite fast. From the other bits, by conveyor belt, go to different parts of the building for further processing. We're still doing some hand boning. Some clients want some special cuts. The machine is not quite as pretty as hand cutting, but the bulk of them are now done by machine. You just can't afford to do it by hand these days. There's a lot of different bits of machinery, so health and safety is really, really important for us. And we don't want to get our people hurt. So we do a lot of training. We do health and safety committee that's made up of the people doing the job. We walk around all the time having a look where there's risks. And of course the product has to be up to a very high standard. We're export standard, so everyone has to understand what that means. We haven't failed an audit for so many years I can't remember. Very strict on hygiene. Because we're the smallest player in New Zealand as far as chicken producing goes, we tend to run out of chicken every day. So it almost becomes a problem by having to say no too often. And that's one of our needs to grow as well. So trying to balance production to sales, we know what we're going to get each day. It's all very predictable. We don't know what customers are going to order. It could be more whole birds or less or more portions. And we have a very complicated predict system that sometimes works and often doesn't. We have salespeople on the road all the time, but they now have computers or laptops. They can hook into the system and put invoices directly in. And they can see how many of everything's been sold, and they can see when they need to start slowing down selling. We have 4 ladies in our sales office on the telephone from about 6 in the morning to 11, putting all the orders together. And they have a big screen showing them exactly what's being produced in the plant compared to what are sold. Well, we're trying to do more and more added value. We make a lot of pre-cooked sausages, frankfurters and krankskis. This morning we saw some breakfast sausages and some meat patties. So there's quite a few lines. We do a lot of smoked chicken, and we're actually at the moment trying to cut down to have less lines. We find we can do the job better with not too many lines. But we'd have at least 100, 150 different products coming out of that plant. The mince we get from our MDM machine, which is mechanically removed meat after we've boned the breast meat off the barrel, which has got a high value still. So that's what we use for making sausages and meat patties. All our products are tested independently after we've made them to make sure they're fit for human consumption, and nothing leaves the plant until those results have come from the lab. The industry is very capital heavy, and the plant obviously gets older as time goes by and new equipment gets designed, so we're always looking, and as soon as we can afford that latest and greatest machinery, we end up buying it. We do have a CapEx list, which is sometimes a wish list if we don't have enough money. But as a family business, most of them, all the profit goes back into the company, improving either equipment or buildings or whatever we need to spend money on. So it's a business that is asset rich, I suppose, and cash poor. But that's all part of it. It's a way of life. It's not really a job.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.